Does your backyard look like this right now? Well, this is a great time to start talking about what seed shopping we're doing. Let's go inside. Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Sarah. Thank you for joining me inside where it's warm. I wanted to put together a little video to talk about the seeds that I've purchased so far and why. So by no means am I an expert. I have been interested in pollinators for a few years now, and I've been getting involved by volunteering for seed collection and doing a lot of research into butterflies and their host plants, along with moths and specialist bees. So a lot of this is just stuff I've learned along the way, and if you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. If you have anything you would like, any special knowledge you'd like to bestow upon me, drop it down in the comments. I'm here to learn and share what I've learned so far. By no means am I here to tell you how to garden. Before you dive into deciding what seeds you're going to buy for your garden, for the 2021 season, you need to be thinking about if you have not already started a garden, or maybe you have one, but you haven't converted it to pollinator-friendly plants yet. Some things you're going to want to consider are how much shade, how much sun, and how much water or how dry. That will determine if you are going to be using lots of sun-loving prairie plants that can do well in drought, or if you're going to want some like woodland species that do well in shade, or if you're going to need like wetland adapted plants because you have a really soggy yard or garden space. Figure that out first and foremost, because if you buy prairie plants that like it dry and you stick it in a wet garden, or vice versa, you're not going to have much success. So just know the basic parameters of your garden before you go nuts, okay? From there, you want to consider, are there any particular wildlife species you want to see in your garden? Do you want to see monarch butterflies? Everyone loves monarch butterflies. Well, what do you gotta have to see monarchs? Well, you need milkweed of any kind. And if you want to start milkweed from seeds, you got to start ordering the seeds now. If you want to see other pollinators, you need to include their host plants all the same. If you want to see specialist bees, you need to know what plants they're using, and you got to grow those in your garden. Those plants are not going to magically show up. Sometimes they do. Awesome. I love free plants. But they're not going to do that, and the animals are not just going to come and use what you're providing just because they feel like it. If it's not the right plants for them, they're not going to show up. So if you want to see monarch caterpillars, you got to have milkweed. From there, you want to also consider you want blooms all summer long. And in order to do that, you have to strategically plan your species to ensure that you have a species for each bloom time throughout the spring and summer and fall. So you want to have some spring ephemerals for the spring. You want to have early summer, midsummer, late summer, and fall blooming plants. Fall blooming plants are super important for things like monarchs because they're migrating south and they need a food source. So you're going to want the majority of your species to be midsummer bloom because that's when we have our peak of pollinators, but you want to make sure that even though you have the majority of summer blooming, you have a nice mix of spring and fall. The other thing to consider is, what are you doing with these seeds? I bought the seeds that I'm about to show you with the intention to use them to create plant starts. Why do I want to create plant starts? Well, because I want to be able to give these away to my friends. I want to be able to add them to different gardens that I've been helping with. I want to be able to donate them to some nature centers that are in my area. And of course, I want to put some in my mom's garden because who doesn't love dumping more plants on their mother? So I bought these seeds with no affiliations to the company, but I had been recommended them. I have heard, that they're a reliable company, and their packaging and their processing seems pretty straightforward. So the majority of these seeds I'm about to show you are from Prairie Moon Nursery. So to start out with, I bought wild columbine. I've heard that this is really great for hummingbirds, that they will their migration route is timed to come back to catch the columbines blooming. Love wild columbine. The other one I got was wild geranium. I love wild geranium blooms, and what I'm envisioning happening with wild geranium in the garden is that as it blooms in the spring, you get these lovely light purple blooms. Well, when it's done, the foliage then begins to get bigger And what I'm hoping it will do is it will then provide like a foliage backdrop as my summer plants begin to then take over the garden. That's the plan. And you must be looking at me like, Sarah, there's 3 packets in front of you. Well, I'm a ding-dong. I bought 2 wild geraniums for no reason other than I did it on accident. So, yeah, that's a thing that I do. So, very straightforward packaging from Prairie Moon. The details on the front include the sun, soil, and it also gives you information, which I really like, on the germination code. What's the germination code mean? Well, so with a lot of wild native flowers, you have to do some processing to the seeds before they'll germinate. And Prairie Moon put together a brief little sheet that talks about their germination codes so you can link it with the code on your seed pack. So code seed takes us to seeds germinate after a period of cold, moist stratification. And then it goes into more details so that way you can figure out what you need to do now that you have these seeds in your possession that'll help you prepare to use them later on in the season. What I will likely be doing with a couple of these seeds that need to be cold stratified is I will be putting them in my freezer, quite frankly. All right, well, Sprout's here now, so that's cool. Things are going to get a little more difficult for me, but it's fine. Come here, kitty. It's my fault for putting the camera right by where she likes to sit in the window. So what do we talk about? Germination codes, right? Yeah, putting things in my freezer. Awesome. Weird, but kind of what you have to do when you live in an apartment or you don't have access to a garage. So I didn't really buy that many spring ephemerals because I have no experience with spring ephemerals, literally no clue what I'm doing. I don't know how to start them. This is going to be a very interesting process. So I will likely let you know how it goes, but if you have any recommendations or an experience with starting like early spring plants, please drop some knowledge in the comments. I will be doing some research on it, but not for a little while because I need to space out the things that entertain me throughout the winter months. Okay, so you know how I said you need to have a lot of blooms for midsummer because that's the peak of pollinators? Well, I'm going to go through the seeds that I've picked out that'll be blooming largely in early to midsummer, and then I'll be covering my late summer to fall plants. So I picked out quite a few milkweed species. Through Prairie Moon, I got world milkweed, showy milkweed, and butterfly weed. This is world. Then we've got, which was this one? Showy. Showy looks a lot like common. It's the same color, but it just has a little bit more showy blooms. Haha. And then butterfly weed, because I really like the size of butterfly weed and I really like the bright orange. You don't find many native orange plants. It looks very tropical in the garden and it doesn't get nearly as tall. So if you're looking for something to be kind of at the front or middle of your garden, butterfly weed is a really good candidate for that, which is again why I want to start these and create plugs so I can put them exactly where I want them now that I kind of know what to expect from how big they're going to be. So I bought a few different milkweed seeds that you don't normally find plugs for at nurseries because I wanted something a little bit more creative and different. I do have common milkweed seeds. Now hear me out, okay? I'm based in Ohio and at a lot of the conferences, rest in peace since coronavirus, a lot of the conferences you'll find free stuff. Who doesn't love free stuff? I love free stuff, especially when I spend a lot of money on this stuff and it doesn't go right. And then I lose that money pretty much. So free stuff is great when you're learning, and I'm definitely learning. The training wheels are still on. So these are some common milkweed seeds. This in particular is from Ohio Pollinator Habitat Initiative. It's just some common milkweed. You've got another one here, Ohio Pollinator Habitat Initiative on there as well, with the Licking County Soil and Water Conservation District and U.S. Fish and Wildlife. What I imagine these seeds are a result of are volunteer collection efforts. I know that Ohio has a lot of success with Project Wingspan doing seed collections throughout the state. If you're interested in volunteering for seed collection, definitely check that out and see if Project Wingspan is in your state. They're fantastic. I assume that this is where these seeds came from. I believe their process is pretty simple. They get collected, then they get sent off to be processed, and then they get redistributed back to the regions that they were collected in for habitat projects. So I think that's where these come from. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyways, Hate on Ohio all you want, but I really do like what's going on in Ohio for pollinators. Ohio's got it going on, kind of. So anyways, those are my common milkweeds. I'm not gonna buy common milkweed seeds because there's just no point until I use all of the free ones that I have, especially since I'm learning and these are largely just going in my garden or the gardens of my friends. What else did I get? Well, I got some Monarda fistulosa wild bergamot. This has been one of my favorites. I grew like a bee balm that I got at the farmer's market in a big pot this summer, and it did really, really well. And it was my favorite. It had more of a purple bloom, I think, you know, because it's a cultivar, but this is going to have a nice light purpley bloom, and I'm just really excited because I didn't realize how much I was gonna fall in love with this plant. Now I do kind of like the packaging on these. I know that we really like being able to see the plant itself on the packaging, but this print that they did, and they did it on this bigger one, is just really cute. I don't know, I kind of want that to be my wallpaper. You could see milkweed seeds on here. I think what looks like yellow wing stem seeds, but I could be totally wrong. And some smaller seeds, probably echinacea. Yeah, anyways, I think the print's really cute. I kind of don't even want to rip it open. So Monarda fistulosa, really good summer bloom. It just gives you lots of blooms, and I had lots of butterflies and bees visiting my bee balm, so I imagine that will be what happens with this guy here. So what is in this giant mystery packet, Sarah? Why did you buy one giant mystery packet? Well, this is Echinacea purpurea, purple coneflower. I'm obsessed with purple coneflower. I put a lot of them in my mom's garden that were seed starts I bought at the local nursery, and I love them. I love them in the sun at golden hour. You'll see so many pictures if you go to my Instagram of coneflowers. I just love them, and I wanted to make sure that I had enough seeds to do whatever I want with them, and quite frankly, I just went big. I also kind of wanted to get an idea of what 1 ounce of seeds looks like, and this is what 1 ounce of seeds looks like, as opposed to, is this going to tell me how much is in here? 0.125 ounce. So, if you need echinacea seeds, call me. I have quite a few. Alright, so those are all like my very mid-summer blooms. These are going to be summer and moving into late summer and fall. Something that I did as a quick interjection here, something that I put together, which was really easy, and you can do this in Excel. I did this in my notes on my iPad because I wanted to have more than just like an Excel sheet, but you're not really going to be able to see this. But I put together a table, right? And it has the species, its bloom period, its height, its color, and the associated species. So for instance, I don't know when field thistle blooms, but my thing is going to tell me July through October. So field thistle, if it's going to bloom July through October, I would consider this a late summer friend. So yeah, I bought field thistle. Why did I buy field thistle? Well, because collecting wildflower seeds for Project Wingspan, it's on their list of their important species, so I went for it. I said, why not? And I'm tired of looking at thistles that are invasive, so let's get some appropriate thistle species in these gardens, shall we? I really don't know how much of my cat you can see. She likes to watch blowing leaves, and so today is our first snow, and snowflakes are kind of just like in her mind right now. I got purple prairie clover. I don't know if you can see that beyond the cat. Oh, kitty cat. Come here, kitty cat. Come here, come get this. Oh, look at that. Ooh, fancy toes. Now that I have her attention and I've gotten her away from the camera, I'm super, super excited about New England asters. Why? They're one of my favorite plants because they're just so freaking beautiful. Cat, what are you doing? Kitty. Kitty, stop. Kitty continued to cause a bit of ruckus, so I had to stop filming for a little while. Any hoozle. These guys, I hope you can see them. Purple blooms with some yellow in the center. I find them to be gorgeous. Now, they get to be pretty large, quite bushy in your garden, so if you are going to be growing these, you need to devote quite a bit of space to them, and I recommend maybe making them a little bit of a focal point in your garden because they are going to be large and in charge. And a pro tip to keep in mind, I know obviously our plants aren't growing right now, but if you do have some really large and unruly plants, you can take a string and tie them about halfway up. You want to get all the stems that are going in different directions and you want to kind of tie them together loosely, just enough to hold them together and a little bit more straight. I had to do this at my mom's with the ironweed and the New England aster because let's face it, in suburbia, you kind of need your gardens to look a little less unruly. I'm sure everybody has a Karen or two in their neighborhood who is ready to report your gardens, especially with native wildflowers, because they consider them to be weeds. These women love to report for code violations. So don't be a Karen, 1. 2, watch out for the Karens in your neighborhood. Also, I'd like to note, because obviously I'm establishing myself as quite the doofus, I have 2 packets for New England asters. I ordered twice from Prairie Moon, and the second time I ordered New England asters because I didn't even bother to check what seeds I already had. Don't do that. Know what you have before you order. I'm not mad to have 2 packets of New England aster at all. I'm going to use it, and I'm going to be excited to use it. However, I would have loved to have maybe bought a different variety if I had known that I already had it. So, no use crying over spent money. It's fine. So I know I already mentioned this one in particular, but I do want to bring it up again for later in the season blooms. But butterfly weed, again, this guy, bright orange, almost tropical, this will bloom through September. I saw it even driving down the road on roadsides blooming in September. So if you want a milkweed species that'll provide more nectar throughout the season, butterfly weed is a really good one to use. What else do I got? Ooh, so I also bought sawtooth sunflowers. These guys will be pretty tall, that's why I bought them. I wanted some really, really tall varieties. I really love the yellow. I love bright yellows, to be honest. So bright yellow and really tall had my name on it. What I really liked that Prairie Moon Nursery does is they sent me with each order some free seeds. Now they sent me the same kind each time, so me having double seeds again, it's not my fault on this one. But they sent me early sunflower seeds, and I've never grown these before. I researched them. They are a native to Ohio variety, so I'm gonna go for it. So thanks, Prairie Moon. I appreciate the free seeds. Kind of makes up for buying the same kind of seeds twice, but it's cool. So again, I know I already talked about purple coneflower, but echinaceas will also bloom through September, maybe even October. So this is a good variety if you're looking for later in the season nectar, along with providing really great seeds for birds. I also purchased showy goldenrod. Now, I'd like to note that some goldenrod species, Canada goldenrod for instance, can spread through its rhizomes and multiply and take over a landscape. You can often see monocultures of Canada goldenrod in the fall when you drive past like kind of abandoned fields and they're all bright yellow. That's likely because Canada goldenrod is just spread everywhere. And though it's providing nectar, that's cool, there's not a mosaic of habitat on the landscape, and you're missing a lot of opportunities for other host plants or other nectar sources. So if you have Canada goldenrod in your garden, I highly recommend staying on top of it or removing it altogether and replacing it with a different goldenrod species that's not going to be so aggressive. So I have not heard anything about showy goldenrod being aggressive like that. I will definitely let you know if I discover that though, but I don't expect showy goldenrod to be problematic. So again, showy goldenrod, nice yellow color. I believe it's a little bit on the shorter side as well, so that'll be nice. And last, but certainly not least, I got some tall bone set, not to be confused with common bone set. I didn't see any seeds for common bone set, but I like bone set. I like that it'll bloom later in the season, and I didn't have many white blooms in my collection, and honestly that's why I went for it, because sometimes I find that I'm in this like purple and yellow rut, and I need to make sure I'm getting something other than just like purple and yellow. I mean, I guess I could have fun and do a garden of nothing but purple and yellow, but I really want to have a variety just for like aesthetic. Anyway, so tall bone set, excited. So if you've made it this far into the video, I really want to thank you for joining me, quite frankly. I know that they say that your first video is usually the worst, and I know that this one has not been great. It has definitely came with some struggles. I know that vlogging with a cat is a lot more difficult than I initially anticipated. I mean, doing anything with a cat is hard. Keeping my houseplants alive with a cat is really hard. So I guess I should not be shocked. But thank you so much, honestly, for joining me, and hopefully joining me again in the future on my adventure to provide habitat for pollinators. I am just so stoked because living in an apartment, I really thought that my options for gardening were limited until I had the brilliant idea to grow native wildflowers in pots, and I had a lot of success this summer with things like bee balm, blazing star, and some milkweed species, and I'm really excited to share that with you, and I'm really excited to share some of the projects that I'm going to be putting together as I move into the 2021 growing season. So if you're willing to stick with me and you have questions you want me to research, drop them down below. I really want my channel to become a resource for experienced and inexperienced gardeners. I want this to be a channel where if you've got no in-ground growing space, or if you've got acres to plant a prairie on, you're willing to join me to learn about pollinators and their plants, because habitat doesn't need to always be large scale, and you don't always need to have an in-ground garden to be able to experience native pollinators, you know, right outside of your door. So please stick with me and subscribe to this channel if you can tolerate more animals and more fumbling and more plants. So again, thank you so much. First is the worst. Grow native wildflowers. That's all I got. Thank you so much.